shadows crawled over the plain like forgotten ghosts, and Elias Boone sat stiff in his saddle, eyes fixed on the horizon. His horse plodded with a tired rhythm, hooves crunching brittle grass that whispered of drought. He carried wealth on paper, herds, land, men who answered when he called, but the weight that pressed his chest made him poorer than a beggar. He had buried his wife 3 winters past, and though the soil had long since settled over her grave, the hollow inside him remained unfilled. He often wondered if he was meant to walk this earth alone, a man made of silence and dust. A faint movement caught his eye near the river's bend. He pulled on the reins, heart tightening with unease. At first he thought it a deer fallen low in the grass, but as he drew closer, the shape resolved into something human. A woman. Her dress was torn, blood staining the fabric dark where it clung to her side. She lay curled like a wounded fawn, her breath ragged, lips pale in the fading light. Elias slid from his horse, boots sinking in the mud, his pulse echoing in his ears. For a moment he stood motionless, unsure whether to step closer. Her eyes flickered open, amber pools clouded with pain, and the words broke from her in a trembling plea, "Please, don't touch me." Elias froze as if struck. He had not laid a hand on anyone since the day he kissed his wife's coffin lid. The sharpness in her voice cut through him, not because of rejection but because of what it implied. Someone else had touched her and not with kindness. He raised both hands slowly, showing her the emptiness of his palms. "I won't," he said softly, voice rasping like wind over gravel. "Not unless you ask me." Her gaze lingered on him, half suspicion, half exhaustion. For a heartbeat he saw her pride battling against her frailty. Her body trembled, and he feared she might slip into silence forever. He crouched, careful to keep distance between them, dirt pressing cold against his knees. "You're bleeding bad," he murmured, though she already knew. "If I don't help, night'll finish what started here." She pressed a shaking hand to her side, crimson seeping through her fingers. "Then, let the night have me." The words were heavy, resigned, and yet beneath them quivered something, defiance or perhaps a test. He swallowed hard, unwilling to force himself upon her. Instead he sat back on his heels, eyes on the river, speaking as though to the current. "Name's Elias Boone. I'll stay right here till you're ready. No harm will come while I'm near." The evening deepened, and the stars appeared like scattered ash across the heavens. She did not answer, but he saw her chest rise and fall, shallow yet steady. He poured water from his canteen into a tin cup, set it within her reach, then leaned away. Slowly, painfully, she dragged the vessel toward her lips and drank, drops trembling down her chin. She whispered at last, voice almost breaking, "Ayanna?" The name struck him like a prayer. He repeated it once, quietly, to honor it. Her eyes fluttered closed, though her body eased as if hearing him had given her some measure of safety. He remained at her side all night, singing no words, only low hums that floated into the air like smoke. At dawn, with the sky stained lavender, he coaxed her to mount his horse. She resisted at first, face set like stone, but her wound left her too weak to walk. He did not touch her. He merely steadied the reins, allowing her to climb on her own. Together they rode toward town, silence between them broken only by the rhythmic thud of hooves. When they entered the main street, heads turned. Whispers slithered from porch to porch, suspicion sharpening every glance. Elias felt the weight of eyes pressing against his back. Sheriff Clanton stepped forward, boots thudding against the boards of the jail porch. His stare was hard as river rock. "What's this, Boone?" the sheriff asked, spitting dust from his lip. "Bringing trouble into town?" "She's hurt," Elias replied evenly. "Needs care." Clanton's gaze shifted to Ayanna. She sat tall despite her pain, chin lifted, amber eyes blazing with dignity. Yet the townsfolk's whispers grew crueler, murmurs of her being out of place, unwanted, a reminder of old wounds between their worlds. "She don't belong here," Clanton said flatly. "You do best to take her on." Elias's jaw tightened, but before he could speak, the door to the inn swung wide. Old May, the innkeeper, peered out with eyes soft yet sharp as a needle. "In with her," May said, voice brisk but warm. "I won't have a soul dying on my porch." Inside the dim inn, Ayanna staggered toward the small room May prepared. Elias paid for her keep, placing coins on the counter with a clink that echoed louder than it should. May's eyes met his and she spoke low. "Careful, Cowboy. Caring costs more than coin." That night, through the thin wall, Elias heard Ayanna whisper to herself, fierce and broken, "I am not broken." The words carved into him deeper than any knife. He sat awake long after, staring into the dark, wondering what storms had carried her to the river's edge, and why his heart, long dormant, now beat with a strange, aching urgency. In the days that followed, he brought her meals, leaving them at her door without a word. She never asked for his presence, yet he returned again and again. Slowly, strength returned to her frame. One morning, when he came for the tray, he found a single wildflower left upon it, fragile and stubborn, petals trembling in the draught. It was the first time she'd given anything back. He touched the bloom lightly, almost reverently, and felt a warmth stir within him, foreign and frightening. He did not name it, for to name it would be to risk it. The town kept watching, their judgment thick as smoke. Clanton muttered warnings of shame, of folly, of the danger in binding himself to a woman outside their circle. Elias listened, but the words rolled off him like rain off stone. Each evening he mended her shoes by the lamplight, polished them, and left them quietly by her bed. At dawn she found them and pressed her lips to the leather, her gratitude unseen but deeply felt. Their bond grew not in words but in gestures. The careful placing of bread, the soft return of a flower, the quiet hum of a song carried through a closed door. On days her strength allowed, they walked the riverbank together, always keeping space between them. She showed him where deer left tracks, how to listen for their silence. He taught her to braid rope from horsehair, hands demonstrating on the air rather than on hers. Their lessons were exchanges of trust, woven thread by thread. One stormy night, thunder shook the inn, rattling windows, making the walls tremble. Elias found her in the common room, hands trembling as lightning split the sky. He did not reach for her. Instead, he sat across the room, humming the tune his wife had once sung. Ayanna stilled, eyes locked on him, the song pulling her back from fear like a hand extended without touch. By dawn, her trembling had quieted, and for the first time she poured him coffee herself. The taste was bitter, but to Elias, it felt like sunlight after years of cold. It was not long before Clanton came again, standing in the inn with the townsfolk gathered close. "She's a burden," he declared. "She don't belong. Send her away." Ayanna stepped forward, tall and unflinching, though her wound still ached. Her voice rang clear, "I will not be cast aside." The room held its breath. Elias stepped forward, his own voice iron-strong. "She stays. With me." Gasps rippled. Judgment swirled thicker than ever. For a moment, Elias feared she would refuse him, afraid of being tethered, of losing the fragile dignity she had reclaimed. But Ayanna lifted her chin, amber eyes fierce. "I walk beside him, not behind." The words rang truer than any vow. And in that moment, Elias felt something break free within him. Grief loosening its hold, love born not of possession but of honor. Together they left the town, riding into the horizon, two shadows braided into one trail of dust. And if you listen close, when the prairie wind sighs at dusk, you may hear the echo of their story. Love, when it finally came, was not a storm but a quiet hand withheld until asked for. Dignity was not given, it was reclaimed. And sometimes the richest men are not those with land or cattle, but those who learn to kneel in the dirt beside another's pain and wait.